Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Reverend Oliver Snow, your local preacher from the Black Lagoon, and today I would like to review The Separation of Church and Hate by John Fugelsang. So, if you've been scrolling through social media, you may have seen an advertisement for comedian John Fugelsang's book, Separation of Church and Hate. Now, I was not terribly familiar with Fugelsang when I heard about this book, but when I saw his face, I was like, oh, that guy. I know him. I've seen him in things. To this day, I still do not know what things I have seen him in. I searched through his entire IMDb page and nothing jumps out at me, so I'm just gonna assume I saw him in like a roast or a comedy special or something. The premise looked interesting, and so I got a hold of this audiobook and listened to it at work. Now, before I get started on this review, I'm going to give you my opinion on this book. And that opinion is, this book is not for me. Wait. Before you go into the comments and freak out, I do actually have quite a bit positive to say about it. This book begins with a very touching tale about how John Fugelsang's parents, a priest and a nun, ended up meeting, falling in love, and eventually marrying, and how they spent their lives as devout Catholics. It's a very nice story where Fugelsang recounts his parents' faith and activism and how he was inspired to write this book because he was tired of seeing a faith that inspired his parents to do such wonderful community work being instead used to sow hate. For me, this was honestly the best part of the book. It's funny and vulnerable and nice to see in a society that values neither humor nor vulnerability. But that brings us to my first issue with this book, and really my major problem with it, which is that this book is being promoted as a way to talk to more conservative people about misconceptions they may have in terms of their own faith or what the Bible may or may not say. The book's goal as a whole is to provide theological argument to those who have deeply held conservative Christian beliefs. It breaks down various bigoted beliefs held by MAGA Christians and lists off theological principles that are in violation of MAGA's political vision. These usually have to do with things like race, immigration, women's rights, and homosexuality. All the theology in this book does hold up. I didn't read anything in the book that seemed completely off base in terms of scholarly consensus. Note that I say scholarly consensus and not religious consensus. I don't even know if that exists within Christianity anymore, if I'm being honest. So, what was my issue with the book? Well, I think it's a bit naive. I think Fugelsang falls into the trap that many liberals fall into, which is the belief that if you simply show fundamentalist Christians logic, they will see the light. I do not think that is the case. I think at one time it may have been, but I don't think we've been there since the Obama administration, if I'm being honest. Now, that's not to say that there aren't moderates that could be swayed by this theology, especially those who long to hold these beliefs, but have a fundamental theology that tells them that they will go to hell if they hold them. I absolutely think that there are normal people held back by their theology that could be swayed by a loving family member utilizing some of the theology from this book to sway them out of support for Trump. But this far into what we're all facing, I just don't think that's the case. I think we're dealing with a cult, and while de-radicalization work is noble and the people doing it should be applauded, I don't really think that's something a comedian is capable of doing. And if you want to make the starfish argument, that's fine. You know, you can't throw all the starfish back into the sea when they wash up on shore, but you can save a few. I think that is a completely rational and empathetic worldview. But the whole time I was listening to the book, I was just like, they aren't going to care about any of this. Because at the heart of MAGA fundamentalism is the belief that you are a special Christian, that your Christian belief is the only real, true, and righteous one, and that everyone who says otherwise is just the devil trying to trick you. There is an individualistic, self-centered belief system at the heart of MAGA fundamentalism that has convinced these people that they are the only real humans on earth, that only them and people who think the things they do are worthy of consideration. Everyone, even other devout Christians, are subject to suspicion and scrutiny. This is a cult that has no desire to compromise. They see every compromise or opposing worldview as fundamentally demonic. Unfortunately, the only thing that will likely break some of these people out of this are either de-radicalization efforts from trained professionals or a tragedy that opens their eyes. Either they will realize that their belief system has hurt and alienated themselves or the few people they care about, or they will experience national embarrassment when this inevitably all comes crashing down. And even then, there will be hangers-on. There always are. Because of this, I found the premise fundamentally flawed. However, the book is still full of very useful information, and the theology, as I said, is quite sound, which is why I said this book is not for me. I already know everything in it. Nothing in this book was new information for me, and so I didn't get a lot out of it. I also do not think this book will be particularly helpful for its intended audience, which is people trying to de-radicalize their fundamentalist Christian nationalist friends and family members. But I do think there are people that this book will be incredibly helpful for, and that is people who either grew up in fundamentalism and are looking to leave, or people who left fundamentalism and are looking to return to the Christian faith, just not the one they grew up in. I think this text can provide a great deal of comfort and context for those people in a way that doesn't come across as preachy or condescending. It has a good sense of humor, and it can show that Christianity is not just fundamentalism, no matter how much the extremist right wing tries to pretend it is. I think that this book does a really good job restructuring the narrative around Christianity and not letting this incredibly powerful institution be gift-wrapped for some of the worst people on earth. People who obviously don't actually care what the text has to say or the context it was written in, but instead just use the Bible as an instrument of oppression. There were some interpretations of scripture in this book I personally did not agree with, but all interpretations were still very much in line with the scholarly consensus. There are just a lot of different passages that can be interpreted multiple ways, and the vast majority of biblical scholars are straight white men, which means the consensus can sometimes have some blind spots when it comes to interpretation, especially when dealing with issues of sexuality, racial identity, and women's rights. It's not that the theology in the book is in error, it's just that we have come to two different but equally plausible possibilities. A lot of stuff in the Bible is like that. It's the study of ancient literature. There's often more questions than answers. Overall, if you are a beginner at biblical study, or if you're someone looking to heal from a bad church or return to faith, I highly recommend this book. However, if you are someone with an intermediate or higher education on religion, it's probably best to sit this one out. Again, the book is Separation of Church and Hate by John Fugelsang, and it is available in both print and audiobook. If it sounds like something you would enjoy, you can purchase it from wherever books are sold, pick it up from your local library, or use the Libby or Hoopla apps to get library books delivered right to your phone. Have fun, and happy reading.